Burt Reynolds, pound for pound, is one of the biggest stars we've ever had on this show.
It's the first time I've talked about my life in over 20 years, I think.
I want to find out what the real Burt Reynolds is like. He's one of the biggest movie stars in history, huge TV star, dated some of Hollywood's most beautiful women, suffered drug addiction to painkillers. He's done it all.
I've had a hell of a life.
He's a tough guy in the movies, and he's also been a tough guy off camera. One wrong question and boom.
Piers, be nice to me, will you? For God's sake, or I'll hunt you down and break your leg.
Finally got you here. Burt Reynolds, one of my heroes.
Really?
Really? Oh. How do you feel about sitting here discussing your life?
Frightening. I mean, if we're going to discuss the whole thing.
We are going to discuss the whole thing.
Well, then, yes, it's frightening.
I want to put into context just how big a movie star you've been in your life. Because for 5 years, between 1977 and 1982, you were the biggest box office star in Hollywood every year for those 5 years. You've had an amazing variety of roles, from Smokey and the Bandit to Jack Horner in Boogie Nights, but everything could have been very different had you accepted a part offered to you by Cubby Broccoli in 1969, James Bond.
Yes. Yes, in my infinite wisdom, I said to Cubby Broccoli, an American can't play James Bond. It just can't be done. And they really tried to talk me into it. I mean, it was about a 10-minute discussion. And finally, they left. Every night, I wake up in a cold sweat. And if you jerk at me, I go, Bond. James Bond. It would have.
Can you do a British accent? I mean, could you have carried it off?
Of course I could have.
Come on, let's have a better your British accent.
Bond. James Bond.
Do you think you made the right decisions for you and your career?
No. No, I don't. I think I took the part that was the most fun. Oh, this would be fun. I didn't take the part that would be the most challenging. And if I've learned anything, I've learned that.
You turned down some of the biggest roles in Hollywood history. One was that you were offered the part of Han Solo in Star Wars.
Yes. I don't regret that.
You don't?
It'd be nice to be in a part of film history, but no, I don't regret that.
John McClane in Die Hard. Apparently you were first choice before Bruce Willis.
No, I don't regret turning down anything Bruce Willis took.
Now, this one I like. Part of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Apparently Marlon Brando stopped you taking that part and said if you were given that role, he wouldn't play Don Corleone.
That's true.
Is that a true story?
Yes, it's true.
That is incredible.
I really believe he didn't think I had the goods.
As an actor?
Yeah.
The role played by Richard Gere in Pretty Woman? You turned down bed scenes with Julia Roberts, Burt?
I saw that the other night, and I thought to myself, damn, I wish I'd... Yes, I wished I'd done that.
And there were two parts that you apparently turned down that went to Jack Nicholson. One was McMurphy and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The other one was Garrett Breedlove in Terms of Endearment.
Terms of Endearment was written for me, and I regret that more than anything.
You turned it down because you were in Cannonball Run, and Jack Nicholson won an Oscar for it.
And Jack deserved it. Jack is our best actor.
I think so.
Of my generation, he's the best.
When you watched him, even if you loved the guy, when you watched him walk up to get the best actor, and you knew you turned that role down, What does that feel like?
I can't say the word, but
Have you talked to Jack about it?
oh, yes. I like Jack. We're friends. He said, what an ass you are.
But let's take a look back at your incredible life and career.
You got something to say it.
For more than half a century, the name Burt Reynolds has defined the term film star.
Well,
he established a certain kind of manhood for a certain generation.
He's extremely handsome, extremely sexy, has charisma just, you know, oozing out of every single pore.
He was envied by all the other actors.
I didn't know I was so popular.
Burt is a star, and that's the difference.
He's one of the few who you just have to say his first name and you know who he is.
By the 1980s, Burt's films were earning hundreds of millions of dollars, and he'd become Hollywood's #1 box office star.
People would go and see Burt Reynolds just because he was in the credits.
This mixture of rugged good looks and all-action antics gave him universal appeal.
He could be in a little action adventure with a lot of laughs. Cars often involved a quintessential American action man.
Women loved him and men wanted to be him, and that's a winning combination.
You believed him. You believed him in the Mean Machine. You knew he could play football. You knew he'd be great in a punch-up.
But the manly image wasn't complete until the arrival of the famous moustache.
He became the icon of the era for this macho man look.
It was definitely his trademark.
Girls thought it was sort of a bit fluffy, a bit cuddly.
Maybe there's just a little bit of naughtiness behind that mustache that women sense.
And while Burt's on-screen characters could play rough, they were certainly smooth enough to charm the ladies.
I just couldn't believe that I was getting to work with him and that we just had such chemistry together, because I was never his girlfriend, just his secret lust. I hope so anyway. He was for me.
And not all the lust was secret. His address book was bulging with the numbers of Hollywood beauties that he dated.
Farrah Fawcett, Lonnie Anderson, Sally Field, Oscar winner, and one of the great American songstresses, Dinah Shore.
Burt wasn't just a sex symbol. 40 years ago, British director John Boorman cast him as the lead in Oscar-nominated film Deliverance.
Deliverance gave Burt status as a leading man in film.
Deliverance is the moment when America knows Burt Reynolds can act.
This character, Lewis, was a, very macho character, complex in some ways.
Machines are going to fail, and the system's going to fail. Then?
And then what?
Then survival. Who has the ability to survive?
Voight made Burt think more deeply, and Burt made John act more spontaneously.
We had a certain kind of chemistry. It was very magical that John Boorman put us together.
But while waiting for the release of the film, American Cosmopolitan challenged Burt to do something no man had done before. A nude centerfold in a woman's magazine.
You gonna be naked? You said, yeah. They're gonna see your tallywhacker?
Burt has since regretted the saucy shot, but it certainly went down well with the ladies.
You know, everybody was always like tearing open the pages to see.
One lovely, luscious helping of Burt Reynolds. Lying on a bearskin rug, all the hairy bits look quite nice.
You can't even look at that picture now, can you, Burt?
I really can't. I'm very embarrassed by it.
Do you actually regret doing that?
Yes.
Why?
I thought it cost some actors in Deliverance an Academy Award.
They put it out in the magazine just before the movie came out, and that was what caused the problems.
Yes.
For you, because you felt that it was distracting from the movie.
Oh, it did distract from it. Distracted from a lot of things.
Do you think it cost you an Oscar?
It cost the film a lot. I mean, the film deserved more. Voight was incredible. I think it hurt John. I think it hurt Ned Beatty, who certainly deserved an Oscar nomination. I think it hurt me, too. It was just the wrong timing.
It's 40 years since you appeared in Deliverance. Do you still think that was your greatest acting performance?
Yes. Yes. Well, I'm not sure it's my greatest acting performance. I think it's my best film. By far, my best film.
You've always been a very physical guy, on and off screen. Do you think that was why you got cast in this kind of action role?
Well, because I started out doing stunts, you know, there's a certain kind of machismo crap that men have. And I'm sure the men in the audience understand this, that you go in a bar, you have a drink, and some guy comes over and says, "What do you do?" And you say, "I'm an actor." And actor just doesn't have a ring to it, does it? I mean, it just doesn't have that sound. So you say, "A stuntman." And that sounds better.
Well, we have some amazing footage from the 1973 film Seamus. This is one of the most dangerous things I've ever watched a movie star do. Now, you nearly broke your neck because you were supposed to grab the branch, or you were trying to, and it slipped.
Yeah, you could see when I hit the ground how beloved I was by the crew. Nobody ran in. I just laid there for a long time, and I broke a lot of ribs and some bones up here in my neck. That particular stunt really should have killed me, yes.
Let's talk about the most famous of all your trademarks, that moustache. It's probably the most famous moustache in the history of A movies and B moustaches. One of the theories as to why you grew it was that you looked, when you were a younger actor, incredibly like Marlon Brando. That's you, not Marlon Brando. And the next picture is Marlon Brando.
I wanted to meet him. I thought he was the world's greatest American actor. When I met him, he was very rude to me.
In what way?
Well, I went over and introduced myself. He was sitting in a bar, and I said, "Mr. Brando, I'm Burt Reynolds, and I've always wanted to meet you. I think you're the best actor in the world. And forgive me for interrupting you." And he went, I don't know what that all meant. But I'm pretty certain that he had no respect for me. I think that's probably when I grew the mustache that night. I would have killed for a hug from him.
Let's go back to where it all started for you. You were born Burton Leon Reynolds Jr. in Waycross, Georgia, in February 1936. Your father, Burt Sr., was the chief of police, and your mother, Fern, was a nurse. When you were very young, your father was away fighting in the war. And in an extraordinary war, his regiment were one of the first to land on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. 70% of his regiment were killed that day.
Yes.
Did he ever talk to you about that?
No, he wouldn't talk about it, but I met men that served with him, served under him, that idolized him. And they told me some extraordinary stories. He took a hill by himself that there were 8 or 9 Germans there shooting at him. He got them all. He was quite a man.
A loving man?
He was, that was a time, you know, an era when men didn't show affection, you know. I would have killed for a hug from him. He lived to be 94, and the last 4 years of his life, we talked about a lot of things like that. And he said some things that I can't even say now without crying. Had he not lived that long, I never would have heard them.
What was the general gist of his explanation?
I didn't know how to say it, Bud. I didn't know how to say it. I knew he wanted to say it, desperately.
What do you think he wanted to say to you that he couldn't?
I think he wanted to say how proud he was of me.
Did he ever tell you that he loved you?
Yes.
Towards the end of his life?
Yes, the very end.
That must have meant a huge deal to you.
It was everything.
He only ever hit you once.
Yes.
You were 16 and you were cussing your mother.
Well, I sassed her. I wouldn't say cussing.
What's sassing?
I said, oh, yeah? That was it. Just, oh, yeah, and then whap.
But it was a proper punch boom.
Oh, I went down.
Your mother thought that he killed you.
Well, he dragged me into the closet and closed the door. And I heard her say, my God, Burt, you've killed him. And he said, no, he's just sleeping.
Tell me about your mother. What kind of woman was she?
Strong, strong woman. She had 7 brothers, 1 sister. She was a great mother. And I couldn't have asked for a better mother.
They were married 65 years.
Yes.
An incredible
Yes.
marriage.
I never heard them. Of course, I guess they didn't argue loud then. But I never heard them.
Do you wish you'd had that in your life?
Of course. Had I been smarter, you know, with one lady, I still would be together with her.
Who's the lady?
Sally.
Sally Field.
Yes.
That could have been, you think, the one for you. If things
Without
had
a
been
doubt.
I want to just go back to the start of your womanizing. You were 15 years old. And you lost your virginity to a woman in her mid-40s. Is it all flooding back to you, Burt?
Yes, rather nicely.
How did you meet this femme fatale?
Well, in Palm Beach, there's a big pier. And I used to dive off the end of the pier showing off. I was just a kid. And I saw this very attractive, I thought, old woman watching me. And, of course, that made me even swan dive even more. And she asked if I'd like to have lunch. I thought that meant at the restaurant, you know. But,
Where did it mean?
It mean at her house.
And what would go on over lunch?
Well, I got to eat faster and faster.
Let's find out how Burt the superstar was born. Burt Reynolds was born in 1936, the only son of Burt Sr. and Fern. He spent an idyllic childhood in rural Florida.
Back in the 50s, it was a beautiful time to grow up here. And we did skip school on occasion, and we'd go out there on the weekends and have fun. You didn't get in bad trouble. You just got in a lot of little troubles, and just enough to probably nag his daddy.
Burt had to be careful not to stray too far from respectability because his police chief dad was not someone to mess with.
His father was a big disciplinarian of him growing up and everything, and his father was a cop, you know, so. But he's remarkable guy.
Any overexuberance from young Burt was soon channeled into American football, where he made his name as a tough guy. It impressed the boys, and the girls took notice too.
The biggest hero in the school. He and his girlfriend come out as Mr. and Mrs. Palm Beach High School or whatever it was.
Burt's hopes of turning professional, though, were dashed by a knee injury and then a serious car accident. Unable to play football, he signed up for a drama class with a charismatic teacher, Watson Duncan, who cast him in a play.
He said, "You got the part." Really? And he started to look around both sides of the stage, and he said, "I guess I found a second home."
Burt went on to win the Florida State Drama Competition, which led to a theatre internship in New York. Now the college football jock was mixing with the great and good of New York's art scene.
He meets Joanne Woodward, who helps him get an agent. So suddenly, just by having a football injury, he's got Paul Newman's wife getting him an agent. And he's off.
And he was off to Hollywood, where they didn't want theatre actors so much as action heroes.
If there was something to do where you might do damage to life and limb, he wanted to do it.
Burt's dark looks meant he could also corner the market in spaghetti westerns and Native American roles.
He was the new look after all those sort of rather coiffed, well-dressed Hollywood stars.
He's like a young Brando. No one had seen anything like it since Marlon Brando.
Over the next decade, the boy from a Florida backwater went from low-budget movies to international blockbusters.
Smokey and the Bandit, 1977, made $100 million.
Bye-bye, baby.
Hit after hit. 5 years, huge box office success.
With box office records came a salary to match. On Cannonball Run, he earned $1 million a week, and by 1981, Burt was the highest-earning star in the world.
Burt was one of the first to live that real lush Hollywood life. He was an emperor.
Burt spent like an emperor too, buying as many as 6 lavish houses, a ranch, and a fleet of aircraft in matching livery.
He had every toy known to man. Beautiful women, speedboats, private jets.
But there's a downside to Burt's new lifestyle.
To deal with all the demands on your time, you hire assistants, whose job, in part, is to shield you from reality.
You start spending money in a ridiculous manner. You start becoming separate from your base. When you know anything is possible, it's a dangerous world.
Is that a true picture? Is that a fair assessment of what happens when you hit that kind of dizzy height?
Yes, I suppose it is. I'm not in the poorhouse.
Have you ever worked out how much you spent?
I have no idea how much. Let me just tell you all, I had a hell of a good time.
There was a great quote you said about you and Clint Eastwood, your good friend. You said, "We hyperventilated for the first couple of years when we started making a lot of money."
Yeah, we did.
There's that feeling of, I better fall down on this horse before they tap me on the back and say, you don't deserve this.
He's a very, very close friend of mine. And this is a true story. We were both fired on the same day at Universal Studios. And they told Clint, you know, your Adam's apple sticks out too far, and you won't get that tooth fixed, that chipped tooth, and you talk too slow. And I said, why are you firing me? And they said, you can't act. And so the two of us were walking towards his truck, and I said, you know, Clint, you're in a hell of a lot of trouble. And he said, why? And I said, I can learn to act. You'll never get rid of that Adam's apple.
The pills you were taking, Percodan, Valium, Compazine, Didirex, Vicodin, Prozac.
That was my evening cocktail. You've
worked with some of the most beautiful women and been linked with some of the most beautiful women. Tell me about Dolly Parton, because you said that just before you started work, she called you in and said, let's just get this humping business over with now. So the obvious question is, did you?
I'm not going to answer that because I don't think it's fair to Dolly.
Sally Field, we've discussed. You both proposed to each other several times.
Yes.
But you were never in the stage of the relationship where the answer was ever yes.
Yeah, I asked her at the wrong time. She asked me at the wrong time, and I missed out on that one, that's for sure.
Is that the big regret of your life, your personal life?
I think we would have been very happy, yes. I'd like to think so. I'm not sure she'd say so.
What would she say?
I have no idea. I would hope it would be something nice, but I don't know. She's just a very special woman.
Does she know how you feel?
No. Does now.
She will now, yeah.
I really handled that one pretty bad.
You also knew Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, I did.
In New York.
One day we were walking along Broadway, and nobody noticed her. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, this is unbelievable. I mean, we're walking along. It's Marilyn Monroe. I mean, nobody's going crazy. And she said, oh, you want to see her? And I said, sure. And all she did was change her body posture. And all of a sudden, within 10 feet, we couldn't move.
Isn't that amazing?
We were surrounded by people. It took 5 policemen.
Just her body language?
Yes.
Does that make her... Is that great acting?
No, that's a great movie star.
Yeah. But you're one of Hollywood's most popular actors. You're also one of the most devastatingly handsome. For Burt, now one of Hollywood's most eligible men, being linked with famous and attractive women just seemed part of a deal.
Are you involved with anybody we should know about right now?
If I did, I wouldn't tell you. Thank you.
He's charming. And I think women, I guess, find that very sexy. You have it or you don't. He's got it.
Burt dated loads of women, but in 1982 there was someone special who caught his eye, a young and sexy starlet, Lonnie Anderson. For Burt, it was lust at first sight.
Well, Lonnie was a blonde bombshell. She looked like the Hollywood wife.
He obviously thought that every day was Christmas. Period.
They were Tinseltown royalty. She was like Barbie, and he was like a very sexy Ken.
The couple married in 1988. Burt was now in his 50s and wanted a child.
That's what he wanted. He wanted a son more than anything.
The couple found they were unable to conceive. They decided to adopt and welcome baby Quinton into the family.
He just worshipped him,
Quinton's a wonderful kid. I mean, that little boy was around all the time, and he felt very like this is what he was there for.
Burt seemed to have found happiness, but things weren't so simple. Ever since having his jaw broken in a fight scene in City Heat, Burt had been taking painkillers, and he was becoming addicted.
He had a nurse that was on the set that would give him his painkillers. But she would try to cut him down, and I know that he had gotten some from some other stunt people and stuff.
The pain from Burt's jaw stopped him from eating, and his weight began to plummet. Meanwhile, his addiction was spreading to an ever wider variety of prescription drugs.
Yes, Hollywood is full of Dr. Feelgoods who will prescribe drugs for anyone.
Burt's behavior became erratic.
The impression you got was he'd become a diva. He'd become a problem actor.
It was a disaster, because then he was uptight, he would snap.
By the early 90s, Burt's marriage to Lonnie had turned sour amid accusations of infidelity and huge rows.
His marriage wasn't going good, and I think it was something, he was hurt bad enough to where he really didn't want to talk about it.
When the couple eventually split, the dirty linen did get aired in public in one of the messiest breakups in Hollywood history.
Well, they lived out their lives in the public. It was an absolute exercise in how not to get divorced.
On network TV, Burt challenged Lonnie to take a lie detector test with him.
If she will take a sodium pentothal test, and I'll take one right beside her, and we'll ask her how many affairs she's had since we got married, and ask me how many I've had, and ask the dates, she could win everything. If I win, I get Quentin. That's all I want.
The divorce ended in a record-breaking payout, but worse, Burt lost the thing he cared about the most when his son Quentin, then aged 6, went to live with Lonnie.
I'm sure Bud didn't mind losing Lonnie, but he did mind losing Quentin.
There's only one of this person, and if you lose them, he's gone. And that would have ripped his guts out.
A very tough time. You've got this problem with the painkillers because of the injuries that you'd sustained on set. You've had this awful divorce, but most acutely, for that period, you lost Quentin. You could still see him sporadically, but you lost that ability to live with him. What was it like for you, that period?
Horrible. You can't have a divorce in Hollywood and have it on the papers every day, and it was terrible, especially when there's a child involved, especially when it's somebody that I love more than life.
Start with the injury, because you were filming City Heat with Clint Eastwood, and during a fight scene, you were supposed to be hit in the head with a breakable chair.
Yes.
But they used the wrong chair. It was a proper chair.
It was a steel chair.
Right. So this was a pretty severe injury.
He hit me right here, broke all this, yeah.
When you were hit, what did it feel like?
Well, it didn't feel good. I went down, but I kept working. Every time I talked, it clicked. I couldn't chew, I couldn't eat, and I was terrible in the movie.
You lost a quarter of your body weight in the duration of the movie?
Yeah. I felt terrible because Clint and I were such close friends, and I ruined the movie.
It wasn't your fault. I mean, you'd been...
Yeah, yes, it was. Yes, it was.
It wasn't your fault. They switched the chair by mistake to a
No,
steel
but it was
chair.
my fault that I, didn't go to the hospital and shut the picture down. And instead, I just took, pain pills and finished the picture.
To put the pain into context, you said in your book, I think, I spend almost every day curled up in a fetal position. I thought I could only take this for a little while longer. I had no idea that for more than 2 years, I would be in my own private hell.
Yes. And the only thing that will take it away are drugs. It was a bad, bad time. I lost everything.
On the pills you were taking, there was a cocktail that Lonnie listed. Percodan, Valium, Compazine, Didirex, Vicodin, Prozac, and other sleeping pills. Would you contest any of that? Was that all? Were you taking all that?
That was my evening cocktail.
That's an incredible assortment of drugs.
Should have killed me.
There was a report you were taking up to 50 halcyon sleeping pills a day.
True.
I mean, that should be fatal.
Yeah.
Why so many?
It was the only thing that took the pain away. And I hurt right now, as I'm sitting here. I hurt every day,
Physically, you mean?
Physically. But I can't start. I don't have, I have the strength not to start. I don't have the strength to stop, which is a strange dichotomy.
How did it stop?
One day, don't ask me why, I looked in the mirror and said, is this what you want your son to remember you by? Is this the way you want to be remembered? Or are you going to shape up and be the man your father said you could be. And I stopped everything.
That day?
That day.
And probably saved your life.
It saved my life, and I'm very proud of myself.
Your relationship with your son, Quentin, you're very close. He's your pride and joy, really, isn't he?
Yeah, we're very, very, very close and talk about everything. I'm really proud of him.
What does he think of you, do you think?
I think he's proud. I think he knows what I've been through, and I think he's proud. How the hell could he have turned out as well as he did if he wasn't proud of me? Best movie I ever made. One night, the 8th time, came to my hotel room, and I went a little berserk.
As you got older, but leading roles weren't always coming your way. For a while in the 80s and 90s, Burt was no longer the big box office draw, the major part to given way to less prestigious roles.
When you get old, you don't get the roles you got when you were young, particularly if you're a leading man.
Action men become older action men, leaving a gap for younger action men. It's cruel, it's true.
But it all changed in 1997 when he landed a huge role in Boogie Nights, which was being directed by the 27-year-old Paul Thomas Anderson.
A brilliant director who clearly saw things in Burt that perhaps others hadn't seen and got something really remarkable from him.
Burt plays porn producer Jack Horner, struggling to adapt to the newfangled world of home video.
You come into my house, my party, to tell me about the future.
I really felt like his role in Boogie Nights was just the quintessential Burt at that time.
I'm a filmmaker. That's why I will never make a movie on videotape.
It was all there, right there in that role.
Burt's outstanding performance earned him an Oscar nomination, but he was pipped to the post by Robin Williams for Good Will Hunting.
It's a great honor. It was so crazy, and it was so... He should have won the Academy Award. He deserved that.
Although he just missed out on an Oscar, Burt did go on to win a prestigious Golden Globe Award.
Everybody has been saying things like comeback, and I didn't go with it either.
Now Burt was back in the spotlight and the offers came rolling back in.
Of course, he could have ended with Boogie Nights, but he's a working actor. He loves his craft.
I think an Oscar nomination suddenly breathes new life into any actor at any age.
Turn up in X-Files, turn up in My Name is Earl. So he's still out there, he's still working.
In 2008, he starred in the British film A Bunch of Amateurs.
It's an honor to meet you.
Of course it is. Where's the limo?
In the film, he sends himself up as an aging, diva-esque American star who finds himself booked in a British Amdram production of a Shakespeare play.
What has the Royal Shakespeare Company come to?
You wanted to be in a Burt Reynolds movie because you knew 3 things were going to happen. It was going to be seen, it was going to be fun, and you were going to be able to do good work.
But in 2010, the work was put on hold when doctors discovered Burt's coronary arteries were clogged. Only urgent bypass surgery could remove the threat of a heart attack.
It was very invasive operation as far as I know. I think they just found it in time.
Now on the mend, Burt could return to his other great love, teaching. He set up a drama class in his town of Jupiter, Florida, for young actors who couldn't otherwise afford training.
He has a class, a theater class, he's teaching people, and he really enjoys that.
He's good to younger actors. This is a guy who loved his profession, and I respect that.
He's always been a generous, neat guy, and he still is. After all these years, he's just as nice now as he was then.
He's as magnetic a personality as I've ever known. He adds an energy to the room.
He's got this soul, you know, he's got this warmth. You just feel like you're loved.
Anytime I think of Burt Reynolds, I smile, just like I just did. He's just an endearing person in my life. It makes me happy to know that such a fellow exists.
Pretty special words from John Voight there.
I was very touched, too. Very touched. I love him very much.
In 1997, you got a call from a young director, Paul Thomas Anderson, who was making a film about the porn industry in the 1970s. What was your first reaction when he called you?
I was angry. I didn't want to make the movie. I thought it'd be a big mistake to make it. And
why?
I thought glamorizing the porn industry would be just awful. I can't think of anything worse. And I thought this young director was very, very talented. Probably picture would do very well. But I thought it would be poison for me.
You turned it down 8 times.
Yes.
What eventually changed your mind?
One night, the 8th time, came to my hotel room, and I said, look, you don't get it. And I went a little berserk, and at the end of this tirade, he said, if you can do that in the movie, you'll get nominated for the Academy Award. And he was right.
When you saw the film, the finished film, at a private screening, you weren't happy?
I just felt that I had, in a lot of ways, sold out.
Then the reviews came out. Peter Travers, very respected critic from the Rolling Stone. Reynolds, blending crack comic timing with unexpected sincerity, hit a career high. Emmanuel Levy from Variety, probably the most respected of all the trade magazines. Burt Reynolds, what is easily his best character role, shines as the film's moral centre. Then came the nominations for Best Supporting Actor at the Golden Globes and the Oscars. This must have perked you up a bit, didn't it?
Yes.
Do you like it now?
I like my performance.
Do you like the film?
No.
Really?
No.
Why?
Because I still feel the same way that I did before.
That it glamorizes the industry?
Yes.
When you look back over, you've been extraordinarily candid tonight about all your life and times. But when you
yes, damn you.
When you look back over it all, what's your overview?
How lucky I am to be alive. And how happy I am.
Your love of acting has driven you now to teach the craft of acting, which I know you're very proud of.
I love teaching. I really do. You know, I've worked as an actor for 60 years. I must have something I could give.
What are the golden rules?
I tell my actors, don't act. Behave. If you catch actors acting, they're not good. If they're behaving, if it's behavior, it's like watching the news. It's real.
You're in your mid-70s now, if you forgive me saying that. You went through a bit of a heart scare in 2010, but you look pretty fit today. How are things physically for you, and how do you see the next few years?
Well, I'm going to live every day, every minute, as best I can. I'm more healthy than I have been in 20 years. They've cleaned out every artery I have, so I can eat anything now. I feel great.
Do you have a lady in your life?
No.
Would you like to?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you auditioning this evening? Some very attractive women here. I think you've been quite entranced by
I've been spotting quite a few.
If you were able to write your own obituary and write the tombstone, how would you like to be remembered?
he lived a hell of a life. And he did his best, his very best, not to hurt anybody.
But it's been an absolute pleasure. It really has. Thank you so much.
The 10 remaining acts will be singing Halloween-themed songs to stay in the competition, so expect plenty of vampires, skeletons and ghosts, and that's just the judges. The X Factor's tomorrow night at 8:25. Our film A Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels is after the news.
Burt Reynolds, pound for pound, is one of the biggest stars we've ever had on the show.
It's the first time I've talked about my life in over 20 years, I think.
I want to find out what the real Burt Reynolds is like. He's one of the biggest movie stars in history, huge TV star, dated some of Hollywood's most beautiful women, suffered drug addiction to painkillers. He's done it all.
I've had a hell of a life.
He's a tough guy in the movies, and he's also been a tough guy off camera. One wrong question and boom.
Piers, be nice to me, will you, for God's sake, or I'll hunt you down and break your leg.
Finally got you here. Burt Reynolds, one of my heroes.
Really?
Really? How do you feel about sitting here discussing your life?
Frightening. I mean, if we're going to discuss the whole thing.
We are going to discuss the whole thing.
Well, then, yes, it's frightening.
I want to put into context just how big a movie star you've been in your life. Because for 5 years, between 1977 and 1982, you were the biggest box office star in Hollywood every year for those 5 years. You've had an amazing variety of roles, from Smoking the Bandit to Jack Horner in Boogie Nights, but everything could have been very different had you accepted a part offered to you by Cubby Broccoli in 1969, James Bond.
Yes. Yes, in my infinite wisdom, I said to Cubby Broccoli, an American can't play James Bond. It just can't be done. And they really tried to talk me into it. I mean, it was about a 10-minute discussion. And finally, they left. Every night, I wake up in a cold sweat. And if you jerk at me, I go, Bond. James Bond. It would have.
Can you do a British accent? I mean, could you have carried it off?
Of course I could have done.
Come on, let's have a better your British accent.
Bond. James Bond.
Do you think you made the right decisions for you and your career?
No. No, I don't. I think I took the part that was the most fun. Oh, this would be fun. I didn't take the part that would be the most challenging. And if I've learned anything, I've learned that.
You turned down some of the biggest roles in Hollywood history. One was that you were offered the part of Han Solo in Star Wars.
Yes. I don't regret that.
You don't?
It'd be nice to be in a part of film history, but no, I don't regret that.
John McClane in Die Hard. Apparently you were first choice before Bruce Willis.
No, I don't regret turning down anything Bruce Willis took.
Now, this one I like. Part of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Apparently Marlon Brando stopped you taking that part and said if you were given that role, he wouldn't play Don Corleone.
That's true.
Is that a true story?
Yes, it's true.
That is incredible.
I really believe he didn't think I had the goods.
As an actor?
Yeah.
The role played by Richard Gere in Pretty Woman? You turned down bed scenes with Julia Roberts, Burt?
I saw that the other night, and I thought to myself, damn, I wish I'd... Yes, I wished I'd done that.
And there were two parts that you apparently turned down that went to Jack Nicholson. One was McMurphy and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The other one was Garrett Breedlove in